Okay, how are you all doing? Looks like we're live. All right. Please confirm if you can hear me, guys. And just put in the chat. So I want to believe that we are connected on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So if you can hear me, just put in the chat that yes, you can hear me. All right, brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started with today's fireside chat. I'm always excited about this chat because we get to talk about a lot of things. And, we get to learn about what's going on in your life, what's going on in our world, tell you about what we're cooking, what we're bringing. And you let us know as well what progress you've made in the last 2 weeks. Okay, so to set the expectations, I have a fantastic guest that's going to be with us today, a recruiter of an employer of labor, right? So, and it's better to hear things from someone in the position of employment when it comes to talking about career and portfolio, for example, that we're here to talk about. So we're going to be diving into what it looks like or what the expectations are from an employer perspective, whether when you're trying to look for your first tech role or after you've gotten your first role and you're trying to get yourself into the organization, what are the expectations from that perspective? And Jones is going to be helping us. I'm sure a lot of you have met Jones in the past. So he's one of our co-founders at Dire.io, and he's going to be joining us. So I'm going to be bringing them on stage shortly. I've got Jones, yeah. Hey, Jones, and I've got Kid as well. How you guys doing?
Doing great, thank you.
Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, so I'm gonna let you guys. Jones is going to chair the conversation, and then I'm gonna be chiming in from time to time, and then but the center of the focus is with you, Ankit, so you can give us all the wisdom, from your perspective. So off you go, Jones. Let's get it going.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Dare. Thank you for dialing in today, and Kit. So, as you're aware, today we want to be sharing some knowledge around the strategic importance of tech portfolios, which, given what we do at Dare.io, is super super critical. But rather than let the bias we have by way of what we do drive what we say, it's always good to get an outsider's perspective, right, an objective view when it comes to the strategic importance of tech portfolios. But so in a minute, I'm going to invite you to share a bit about you. First of all, your background, how you got into tech, also where you're dialing in from, your journey. But before I do, just want to touch in on what we mean when we say portfolios, right? Because it's a broad term, specifically when we're talking about in the context of technology careers, right? So from what I've looked up in summary, what we're talking about when we say portfolios, we're talking about the personal and professional portfolios, projects, that a candidate comes with and can demonstrate and share. We're talking about their open source contributions, such as GitHub and things like that, and how that kind of what they can bring to the table. Any case studies that they might have, which obviously helps with fluency when they come into a conversation. And I suppose you have the last things like testimonials, and even if there's any video evidence of them in work or whatever, right? Whatever the shape might be. So for the sake of setting some context around the conversation, that's what I mean when I say portfolios, right? For everyone listening, that's what we mean, right? So over to you, and Kit, if you could help us really by just introducing yourself at a higher level, where you are right now, maybe work backwards, where you're dialing in from, and how you got into tech, and I'll get into my questions.
Yeah, sure. I'm Kit Patel, and I normally am in the U.S., but I'm calling it from Portugal today, so visiting here. So I'm actually on your side of the world right now,
Nice,
but normally in Atlanta, Georgia is where I call home.
Awesome.
And you wanted to talk about a little bit about my journey in tech, correct?
Right. And what you currently do.
Yeah. So I started off many years ago, undergraduate in engineering, but industrial engineering. So part of my course load was heavily involved in programming. And and coding and computer science. I've never done it professionally, but with my most recent company, my business care team, we've started to venture in doing much more development type work. So it's actually been a confluence of using, having AI now helping with coding, and being an assistant, along with me brushing off some of my coding chops. We've started having we have a development team now, and we're starting to build out our development organization and our I'll call it our coding arm of the company. And so our company actually is a BPO. Basically, we help answer phones, do back office services for eye doctor offices in the US and Canada. And so we have developers for the technology things that we need to do. So streamlining the work, along with use of AI in different use cases. So we're using AI with phone agents, supplementing phone agents. We're also using AI with some things like transcription services, things like that. So there's a lot of ways that we're integrating that, and it's really helping deliver a better product to our customers.
Awesome. That's a very, very nice, quick whiz summary as to sort of your background and where you are right now. And invariably, I know you mentioned that you're a BPO to an extent. So we can just jump straight into it, right? As a CEO in that space, what would you say? What are your comments around how important having a portfolio is in your hiring process or your assessment of candidates?
So when it comes to hiring tech, it's very similar to hiring any position, right? So typically past success shows future capabilities. Right. And so a portfolio is something that's pretty foundational to what we look at. Everything from the work they've done to the references they have and who we can call as references. So there's quite a few things that we look at. We can dive in deeper wherever you want, but it's a must-have for us, right? So we're going to ask in our interview process, we're going to ask questions. We're going to review the work. We're going to test them to see if the work they did in portfolio is actually them or not, whether with live testing or with behavior-based questions. So there's quite a lot we use. We use it as a foundation to see if the candidate's a good fit or not.
Yeah. And I suppose that do you have like a set strategy that you run with? You set the parameters, and can you delve deeper into what that looks like? Does it vary for different roles?
It does vary for. It varies for different levels of roles. So for leadership, it's a little bit different than if you're an individual contributor. If you're middle manager versus executive leadership, it's all a little bit different. But the ultimate piece in the portfolio is what we're looking for is we define what that role needs and wants, and the portfolio should match what we're looking for in that position. So if you're applying to a CIO type position, but you've never done managed people, your portfolio, we can see that very clearly in your portfolio, and that's going to come through, and it wouldn't necessarily be a good fit, right? And so we want it to match with the role that we're looking for.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And what does good look like, right? We talk a lot about having an impressive. It's a bit of a qualitative term, right? So maybe we can start to sort of fill that out a little bit, right? Actually, a step back before we talk about that. You're in a BPO space, right? So when you talk about portfolios, do you see an increase in importance? I mean, even in the importance of AI coming in the field, do you see an increase in importance to actually make sure you have a portfolio? Has that changed? Has it always been the way? Is there like a higher standard now have you got to have a bigger portfolio as it were before? Like, can you speak to how that's changed and what your expectations are now?
Yeah. So, we haven't been, quite frankly, I'll be fully transparent. We've only been hiring for about a year, a little less than a year for these positions. So I don't really know the historical change that's happened. What I can tell you though is that it's nice in the tech space because people do use GitHub. They show their work, and so we're able to leverage that. Now, I think your question was, what do I look for in the portfolio? Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that part of the So it helps me understand when it's impressive. I look at how they think about solving the problem. So what are they trying to solve with the item in the portfolio, and how do they go about doing it? So I'll give you an example. Documentation is sort of like a must-have, right? So if you have a GitHub, it's kind of nice. You can look at the documentation, see if they document it properly, see if I can understand the code. Looking for things like not hard coding, right? Are they pulling references properly? Are they structuring the code properly? Are they structuring it in a way that actually is running efficiently? Do they pick the right language to program in, right?
Yeah.
Those are all those little things and choices that people can make and how they make them. If they're managing teams, how did it's harder to get. I don't see quite as many team-based projects inside of GitHub, but how did they? Who was responsible for what? How did they get things delivered? Was it delivered on time? How they manage it? If that's contained in the portfolio somehow, it's helpful to see. So it really helps me understand how they approach problems and how they approach thinking about problems, and also it tells me it can tell me, hey, does this person take initiative? Right. If they're in their GitHub repository, if they have stuff that's outside of work, something that they did for fun, they saw a problem, they figured out a way to fix it, something that's unique, that tells me something about their problem solving abilities and who they are, versus someone who just has like very basic type portfolio items, like a snake game or whatever, right? Something simple. And so when we look at the portfolios, I don't necessarily care about their resume quite as much as what they've demonstrated they've actually built. Yes. As a developer, as a leader, I want to know how they get other people to bridge the gap from where they are to developing into better coders and developers, as well as managing productivity of an entire team. So again, it's a little bit different what we look at based off of what type of position we're hiring for.
Yeah, man, that's so much to unpack there. And Dario, feel free to chime in and help me with some of this, right? But I'm just thinking about a world in which we are doing a lot more remote work, right? You do some BPO, right? You've got people further afield. And I don't want to make any assumptions here, but if we factor in the fact you're dealing with someone that maybe is further away, you're doing a lot more Zoom meetings and stuff like that. Like, how for you, how are you engaging with this idea of a portfolio through that process? So what does that look like? Is it all in front of you when you get on a call? Like, what does that look like from your perspective?
Again, it's past success determines future success, right? That's a general rule of thumb when hiring. So if you want to go after a certain role, I need to see that in your portfolio. So the portfolio, like I said, is the foundational element of that. If I don't see, so if I'm looking for someone who is good at solving unique problems that have not been solved for, so that we break up problems in different categories. There's known problem, known solution. There's unknown problem, unknown solution, right? Yeah. There's known problem, unknown solution, whatever it is. There's different combinations of that. Yeah. And so sometimes, a recent project we have is we're creating AI agents. That is a little bit of an unknown problem and an unknown solution. Yes. Because IVR trees exist, but AI agents don't, and so we don't really know all the problems that we're running into, and we're starting to see that. So I'm looking for people who have done things like that, who have worked on projects. They're like, hey, this is really cool. No one's really done it before. I want to try taking a track at it, even if they haven't been successful. I still want to see that attempt and how they learn through that process and talk through that process and how they thought through solving the problem. And so in the portfolio, I'm looking for unique things they may have tried. Like maybe they played with AI, maybe they create their own app with an AI, nice. With API access with OpenAI or Anthropic, one of these players. Do they have they played with it? And that's what I'm looking for in that space. If I'm looking for a leader, I want to look at someone who's developing in this space. I'm going to look for someone who is good at thinking on their feet and adapting and being agile. So in their resume, they should have some reflection in terms of, hey, I worked for this company. We created this whole brand new product from start. It was a lean startup. And I manage a team of 12 people. In their portfolio, I should be able to see things that, hey, these are not very common types of applications that were built, and I helped build these applications. Yeah. And so I'd be looking for more of that type of situation. Yeah. For our business intelligence arm, which is basically, hey, take our calls and our agents and just create a reporting structure. I'm not looking for anything fancy. I'm looking for, have you taken different API sources, combined them, and made it look good visually? That's all I want to see in their portfolio. Okay, can you make reports like that for me, and can you do it fast and effective? And so in that type of situation, it's a no problem, no solution. I'm looking for that type of work in their portfolio. Specifically, that type of work of pulling in different sources from API and creating visualizations out of that data. If they're in more of a tech field, right? Like sometimes we need some developers for our Amazon Connect is one of the platforms that we use for our phones. You know, do you have a portfolio on Amazon Connect? Have you used that? And so again, that's a known problem, known solution type scenario. And so I'm looking for something that will match their job that I'm looking for as close as possible. Does that make sense? Sorry.
It makes a ton of sense, and there's so much information in there. Like, you know, it's just I'm just trying to figure out how to pull it apart, right? But before I bring Darry in, because obviously he's someone that's working from a recruiting perspective as well, which is interesting to know, and he has his own experience applying for roles. I'm interested to what I hear a lot of in that is sort of someone that's inquisitive about tech, like it's a genuine. You're not transactional technologist, something I just made up right now, which is just, you know, doing stuff. Like you're trying to demonstrate someone that's inquisitive, that takes initiative, as you say, who's playing around with things, who's pushing the edge of what they're trying to do rather than just trying to tick box, which actually speaks a lot to the sort of personal portfolio as well as the professional ones that you can demonstrate. So what if when they join your organization, for example, do you still have the expectation that they maintain a portfolio? Are you still having an expectation that they would, keep sharp, or once they're in, that's it, right? What's your view on that?
Honestly, I don't think we're mature enough for me to have. I've never really thought about that question, to be honest.
Theoretically, what do you think?
Well, one of our values is relentless learning. That's our values are grow in our company. So goal-oriented achievement, relentless learning, outstanding performance, and winning together. So relentless learning is the core of what we do. So I expect them to be learning. And so for them, if that means creating a portfolio or updating a portfolio with new ways, new languages, new types of applications, great. If they want to do that by taking business courses, that's great too. So we support them in learning.
Yes.
And so I would say yes, if it aligns with that value of learning.
Yes.
Just to update the resume and polish the resume, I'd say, okay, yeah, that's great. That's not really that important. I want to see that you're actually learning something new.
Cool. Awesome. Darry, do you have anything to add at this point? Just some quick questions on that. Oh, you're muted.
Apologies. I was actually speaking on me. All right, cool. So I do have a question, and this is coming from me having spoken to a lot of people who are either trying to get their career started, they're trying to get their first job, and I appreciate it's just been about a year that your organization started hiring. But one thing I would be keen to know is, have you ever found yourself in a situation, or if not, how would you handle a situation whereby you're interviewing someone, right? You've mentioned past success determines future success, isn't it? So my question would be, if you see someone who may not really have a lot of great success in the past, but you can tell this is a talent, and you know that working with this talent is only going to be a matter of short amount of time before that person will be able to ramp up. So how would you handle, how do you discover those kind of things?
What do you look for? Yeah.
What do you look for to spot it? And what would you do in such situations?
Yeah, that's actually part of our hiring process. So it's not just developers that we look for that. We look across the board. So first off, do we have the infrastructure to support someone like that? We only have about 75 people in our organization. It's not a very large organization, but we do have some areas we have better infrastructure than others. So we can take on someone who might be more of need some grooming in terms of development work, or they need some in that particular role. So we always look at hiring leaders first who can do that. If we have that in place, then there are certain things that we look at. So it depends on the qualities necessary for that job. Like I said, I described two types of people that we needed, right? We needed someone who's very much keep the trains on the track, no problem, no solution, Amazon Connect, update Amazon Connect, or visualization of data, right? That's still kind of known solution, no problem, versus someone who is like on the cutting edge of technology, like, hey, we're just figuring out new stuff, right? This is brand new stuff that we have no idea how to solve. Those are very different types of skill sets I'm looking for. So I'll touch a little bit on the AI piece, because that's all brand new. What I'm looking for are people who have a history of trying things new and taking initiative. So I might ask them questions like, so this is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking. So let's say they're a new grad. I'm looking for the person who, when they have a party, they don't get the beer or drinks. They find someone who will get that for them, right? And just because they don't have the work experience doesn't mean they don't have the life experience that drives that.
Mhm.
Were they president of a club? Did they start a club? Did they take initiative to solve a problem that was out there? I'm looking for any part in their life that they're doing that type of thing. And we also do some other types of assessments around like cognitive ability and ability to solve problems. So if they have the raw bones and they have that initiative, they've shown initiative in the past, whether it's like, hey, I started a club at my school. That is something that's very important for us to look at, especially if they don't have a lot of actual experience in the workplace yet. And so looking for the similar types of behaviors somewhere in their life, either personal or professional.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It really does help. I don't know if you've got follow up on that, Dari.
I
go for it. I'm trying to gather my
well.
I couldn't hear your thoughts. So my question to you then, Ankit, is what role do you think video could play? Right? What? Because I don't want to go too much into because it's difficult to demonstrate soft skills. We're solving a Dari dial, and I'm always thinking I'm using command for us as well. So, what role do you think video can play when you think about some of the other skills associated with integrating culture? Demonstrating competence in ways you just can't see in retrospective work. Like, what role do you think that could play if it were available?
So what I would say is that as an employer, I want someone who I hire to make my life easier and not harder. So I don't want to have to put a lot of work into making things work. Right? I'm hiring because there's a job that needs to be done, and I want to make sure we hire the right people to do that. Yep. Video. So I haven't had a lot of experience. So we do actually do a lot of video for non-technical positions.
Okay.
But I think in the technical position, what I would like to see with a video is the ability to synthesize and put together and showcase in an effective way. So, hey, can you tell me your story in an effective way and communicate it and show that you can present complex ideas in a simplified way? And doing that. And so if you can do that, that shows me, okay, well, you can communicate effectively, which is important for some technical positions and not others. So if I'm hiring for the business intelligence person whose job is to visualize data, I want to know they can take complex pieces of data and simplify it down into a form that's presentable. That's a skill set they're going to need to have for that type of role. So that would actually be really cool to see someone who is applying for that type of position do that. Yeah. That would probably give them a leg up because they kind of understand that that's what this position is. It's not about putting APIs together and putting it in Looker Studio and presenting it. It's about understanding what you're trying to communicate. Why are we even doing this to begin with? We're trying to make a better business, but why is this even important? So that would be helpful.
I'm glad you said that because one of the things I say a lot is I don't like interviews where the interviewer has some preset questions and on Linux is asking me, what is this? What is that? Anyone can pretty much put certain things in their head and cram it and just come and deliver that. It doesn't really say much. The best job interview I had was when, I was having an interview with this bloke and he shared his screen and he got onto a Linux server and then he just started a few applications running in Kubernetes. And he told me, well, we've got this problem. These applications are running here, but we've got this dashboard showing that things are not going well. What do we do? Right? And he made me so comfortable that we literally sort of worked together, right? Like parent session. And in some cases, he would act like, he's my teammate and we're trying to work. But all that was part of the interview process, trying to gauge the way you think, the way you're solving problem. And I really enjoy that because even if it's someone who's probably never met that kind of problem before, and even if it didn't eventually solve the problem, the way the conversation goes, the way the person tries to think about solving that problem will mean a lot to make a decision about hiring that person. So I like what you said, about that, because at the end of the day, it's not so much about whether you have theoretical, conceptual knowledge about things, from definition or bullet point,
Theory.
or from theory. Exactly. So that's very good. And there's a lot of people that are beginning to put questions in the chat. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I wanna do. That's gonna make it super helpful because this is all about them at the end of the day. So
exactly.
I suggest that the next scenario, next few questions that we have here, and Kit, we did say 30 minutes, will be those questions. But before we do, I always like to kind of go the other way. So we talked about what wonderful looks like, best practice. What's a real turn off? Like, what are the horrible, situations and things that really just shoot? But even potentially talented individuals, like what can go wrong? What are bad things that you've seen or you see that really almost get you to a point of conflict where you're like, I want to give you this role, but you just completely mess things up? Like, what does that look like? And if there's any examples, that would be fantastic. And then Dare, if you could lead us into some of the questions that we've got streaming in, that'd be great.
Yeah, and before you answer that, this is to the community. Please start dropping your questions. So if you have any questions, drop it, because I'm going to be putting them on the screen for Ankit to answer shortly.
Go.
Jones, could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, so I was saying, like, what's the polar opposite? Like, what's ugly look like? We talked about what wonderful looks like. What's the put off? What turns you off? And almost like what have you seen? What could you see to make you feel conflicted, even when you have someone that's talented, incredible, but they've really let themselves down in terms of what they've brought to you, either in their portfolio or in their interview?
So the portfolio should match the interview, right? There should be consistency there.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? So if I see a portfolio, I should expect something in the interview. If I see something in the interview, I should expect the reflected in the portfolio. Yes. And so just putting that extra TLC into making sure it's accurate. I'll share an experience for me personally. Please. I didn't get a job one time because for me personally, I actually did not get a job that I actually would have gotten because my thank you letter had some typos in it that I didn't check properly because I was being, quite frankly, I was being lazy about it. Yeah. And so because of those typos, I even got that feedback. It's like, man, I'd hire this guy, but this doesn't seem quite right. These are pretty basic typos. I'm like, he was right. I really didn't care. And I sent typos and it was a missing, even though I thought I was doing the right thing, like checking that box in a thank you letter, it actually lost me the job. So just congruency and consistency would be the main thing. Anything that's also non-professional. I'm starting to see some, I don't really see it in portfolios. The resumes, I'm trying to think of an example. I've seen it outside of portfolios, right? So just not being professional, usually like an interview, like they might say something or do something that's not professional. I'm trying to think if I've had an example of that inside of a portfolio. Not really, for development work, if I'm hiring someone to do actual development, commenting and make sure it's legible and structured properly would be but that's not necessarily like I don't get the ick factor from it. It's just more like, oh, this person may not be qualified for the role, right? Yeah. That's it. It's not necessarily oh, this is incongruent. But yeah, I hope that answers.
Yeah, that helps. And before you get into questions, Dario, I found that fascinating, really interesting because of the work we do in externs, right? I'm hearing how not easy, how intentional you can be about curating a portfolio to get in front of the interviewer. But if you are not who you say you are, then you're going to get compromised and probably get found out. So be careful the bar you set and make sure you are who you say you are. But then also you've got all the associated soft skills and expectations that come from that, right? You'd be expecting someone that's got attention to detail, familiarity with processes, stuff like that.
Oh, one thing I will say that does raise my eyebrow is if it sounds like it's AI generated, it doesn't sound authentic voice. That does raise my eyebrow nowadays. I'm starting to see it a little bit more, especially if we have like some questions and answers that people fill out. I'm like, okay, this sounds like you just put it in ChatGPT and just didn't even change the answer. You just copy and pasted it. And so, and especially if I talk to them in person, I was like, that's not how you talk. Okay, this is very clear. You did not. Yeah, right. That is one.
Awesome. You know what you said is actually very, 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 very crucial. And this is coming from my personal experience in my early days being a founder and hiring people. And I've had to pay for it, right? Because you mentioned about not paying attention to your thank you letter. And just as simple as that may seem, I think that person probably made the right decision not hiring you. I'll tell you why. Because in my early days of running the business, I actually hired someone and didn't really pay attention to a lot of things that mattered. But guess what happened? I end up having to review every single email this person have to send out because I don't trust what he's sending out, because it's happened a lot of times, because you just have to keep literally babysitting that person. And no matter how good a person is, if attention to detail is lacking, it's a big problem. It's a big problem, So I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay.
I will say, well, let me add one more thing. I have been in a situation where everything was great, but there was one inconsistency. Like, for instance, some of the leadership positions, we asked them to create, hey, what would be your 90-day plan? And they create it, and I'm like, okay, this is not what I want to see. This is what I want to see. Can you come back with these items? And now I'm looking, okay, are they coachable? Will they bridge the gap with minimum coachability? And so if the answer is yes, great. And I tell them up front, this is the expectation moving forward, and it will not work out if you don't maintain this level of expectation if you get hired on board. And so we kind of level set that expectation up front. So there is opportunity. It's not an absolute deal breaker if everything else checks the boxes.
Yes. Awesome. Really helpful. Even for me and Daria, I'm sure we're thinking about a lot of things from what you said. But please, let's proceed to questions. I'll go on mute for a minute, and if I need to chime in.
All right, then. So I'm going to bring up this question here from Chukudi that says, can a candidate who uses AI to solve problems be considered in an interview? For instance, if a candidate explains their problem-solving methods, is it appropriate to say things like, I leverage AI in solving problems? What would that mean for an employer?
Yeah, so to me, it's a red flag because AI is not great at solving problems, all the problems, right? Like, I'd be curious to see what type of problems are you solving with AI. If AI is great for, I'll call, end-to-end type problems or one-to-end type problems. Like, hey, give me a great 5-day tour of Paris, right? It's great for that because there's not one answer. But if you need a very deterministic, I need, what is the fifth prime number from 1 to 100 or whatever? Well, it may answer that, but you know what I mean, like very specific answers. It's not always great at. So I think I'd want more specificity on how they use AI to solve a problem. I don't want them to just say, I leverage AI. Exactly. When do you use AI? When do you not? I'm looking for a contextual knowledge of, do you actually understand this, or are you kind of blowing smoke?
That makes sense. And in my case, I would want to dig further as well, because it's just like Google. Like, Google is available to everyone, but trust me, we can be working on the same task. We both have access to Google, but I may not be asking Google the right questions. And if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers, right? So, and I believe the same thing goes with AI as well. So how you use AI even makes a lot of difference. I'll tell you another one. For example, I've seen, because we have integrated AI into our learning platform, and it's one of the things that we need to start educating people learning on our platform on how to actually leverage that AI. So, for example, our AI is able to analyze screenshots and try to get what you're struggling with and try to help you. But if you just post a screenshot without context, like, what sort of solution are you expecting, right? So, and I've seen a few people doing that, and at the end of the day, they may say, "Oh, this is not helpful." Well, you need to give AI some context. Otherwise, it's just going to hallucinate. It doesn't know what you want. So that is a skill in itself. Knowing exactly how to work with AI to use the query to prompt, is a very, very important. So thanks for that. Let me find another one. Okay, so Sahid has said here, how can someone construct entry-level resume for machine learning job who only did couples of internships and personal projects using Kaggle for data set extraction? And is there still job for machine learning entry-level job? I'm not sure if Ankit is going to be able to answer this very well, but yeah, go for it.
I'm not qualified to answer that second part of that question. I would imagine so. I mean, machine learning is like the original. It's like a form of AI, right? It's before AI got cool with transformers, before GPTs. what I would say is, again, depends on your target. So this gets more into, if I'm the one looking for a job, how do I find my job, right? And there's a lot of complexities there. But the more you can be specific about, if you want a machine learning job, in what type of industry, what type of work, what type of machine learning do you want to do? What types of problems do you want to solve with that? And try to create. I mean, look, software is great because there's a ton of problems out there. Like you could just say, like, let me try to solve this with machine learning in this particular set, and then I can showcase this and apply it at jobs that have this. So if you're in the UK, I don't know if you have access to national health data. But in the US, there's access to national health data. Use machine learning to find some insights to take it to a insurance, or not, you don't have insurance companies. Take it to other companies that may need that data, and so you can show insight, right? Like whether you're trying to work for the national health system and say, look, these are the scores. There's a correlation between time of day, location, and these satisfaction scores. And this is really interesting insight, and these are some things that you might be able to do with that information. But you can proactively, like if you're targeting a specific industry or job, you can actually proactively pull data off the internet and create some machine learning around that. And now, can you get enough data? I don't know, right? So that would be a trickier one. So I'd look for large government databases that you can pull enough data to get an effective machine learning algorithm in there. So I apologize, it's not very specific, but I would say, if you can go there, like you say Kaggle or Kaggle. I'm not sure to say it. Kaggle, yeah. I think, if it's a big enough data set, sure, I think that's good. I think there are some cases. A friend of mine was doing using AI and doing it based off of pictures and weights of horses, and they got pretty good at figuring that out based off that. But that was more of a data science problem than it was a machine learning or AI problem. So, is it really data science that you want, or is it machine learning that you're really wanting to do? So kind of just hone in on which part of that you want to do.
Yeah. And just to add to that, to a certain extent, it's not really about the size of the data set, to be honest. There are certain use cases that you can actually have to put a lot of logic and thinking into solving the problem. And, you can scale that into a bigger data set once you have access to a bigger data set. And it's all about being able to communicate your skill, right? And communicating your skill is not just about what you say with your mouth. Sometimes the way your portfolio is being developed and written, your LinkedIn profile, how regular you're posting on LinkedIn and getting your voice out there. As simple as announcing that I have this use case for the next few weeks, I'm going to be walking through this and sharing my experiences along the line. As little as that may be, it's a very, very good way to gather attention to yourself and build a portfolio, because you can expand that into a lot of things. So thanks for that. I've got another one here that says, is it professional to write a thank you email after an interview?
That's I'm old, I guess. Yeah, it is. You should. It'll separate you quite a bit. Especially if they're trying to decide between candidates. If you send them a thank you letter that's proofread and properly written, unlike what I did, it actually is. Most employers find that valuable, but some people don't. Some people do. It's really easy to do, especially now with ChatGPT. Just make it your own voice. And it's super easy to do. I highly recommend it. You can do things. You can even customize your resume and your cover sheet for every job application too, or close to it. You could probably put this in your portfolio, but you probably automate that process, to be honest, if you wanted to. But yeah, it is professional to write a thank you email. I'm not sure how much people really value it. The older you are, I think they value it more, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Nice. I will probably take maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Okay. And now there is this interesting one I found here, and the reason why this is quite interesting is because you're based in the US, and I don't know if you have actually had experience hiring from places like Africa, India, or other parts of the world that is not US. And this question says, my question, what are the important required information needed to be included in the portfolio to land an international gig, taking front-end developer as a frame of reference? So this person looks like a front-end developer, but he wants to know if he wants to get an international gig. I'm guessing he's in Nigeria and he wants to work with organizations in US and all that. I mean, from an employer perspective, is it going to be a red flag seeing someone trying to get a job from the international? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, no, I don't shoot my business care team. We only have like one or two US based employees besides me. Right. And so everyone's international. Upwork, sites like that make it easy. It's very competitive. So standing out is a different conversation. Again, it's past success, it's future success. If I have a specific type of front end problem, I'm going to look for people who have done that type of product, right? I get when I post on Upwork or one of these sites, I posted for development for AI app, right? When I did that, I saw portfolios, and some people didn't even put any AI pieces in there, so they didn't have any familiarity with it. I was like, why are you even applying to this if you don't have experience with it?
They call that hit and hope. They call that hit and hope. This product.
yeah, exactly. Which is okay, right? It's hard to stand out though in those platforms. I don't know great ways to stand out, but I will say the more aligned, more I feel like you understand and you get what I'm trying to do and understand my problem, the more likely I will hire you as the position. And so that's what I would say with that is try to make your samples align to what you're applying for.
Yeah, that's very profound. You want to apply for a role. I mean, sometimes you even have to ensure that your portfolio matches the job description that you're seeing. So some people just have one CV and only use that one CV ever. But sometimes you need to adjust it so that, it's not like you're lying just because of that. If you're confident with what you're seeing on the job description and it's not on your CV, you can then put it in a way that shows how you have used it, right? And I think that's important.
One thing I'll build on this is that if you can show insight to me, like, so the people who stand out to me in Upwork and those sites they look at my job posting, they understand what I'm trying to ask and say, here's some examples that I've had. Here's where it's different. Here's what I think you may need. Is that accurate? Right. And they're like, I feel like, they get it. Right. They understand what I'm trying to do here. If they do, those people come straight to the top. I'm like, I don't care what they charge because they're taking that proactive step and showing that they understand what I'm actually going through and then empathizing. It basically is empathy, right? Oh, you get it. Okay, now we're aligned. Now it makes it much easier and trust builds much faster if you do that.
Absolutely. All right, I've got this other one from Christo. He says, aside from the soft skills and the portfolio project, please, what else does one need to land a job, especially as a junior/beginner DevOps engineer without work experience? Okay, and Kate, do you want to give this a shot?
That's a tough one. Honestly, I would say that doing independent projects, like find stuff you want to solve and just try to do it. Build your own personal apps. Like I think you mentioned that there with some portfolio projects. Network is important. Right. Trying to find people who in industries that you want to be a part of, joining if you're in Africa, joining chat groups, understanding industries, depending on what industry you want to be a part of. Just getting your name out there is also important. Some people, maybe not everyone, but I'm open to things like this, like doing like free work, right? Hey, if you come to me, if you see that, hey, you have this challenge, I can help you with that, and this is what I'll do for you. What I'm trying to get from it is trying to build my portfolio. Great. Getting on all the platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, whatever else is out there in your country, so you can start building actual business use cases. Important, even if it's small projects that you're only getting paid like $1 or $5, right? That'll make it more attractive for you to come on to get the work. And as you get more work, you can charge more. But you got to develop the framework, that whole portfolio of actual work.
You got to get the evidence, right? You got to build the evidence from somewhere.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And if I can add to that, and I can say this, from a story perspective, something that I have done, something that I have advised people to do and have actually worked for them is this personal projects that we're talking about is very, very important, right? So soft skills, yes, communicating all that on your CV, absolutely fine. But building personal projects if you're not subscribed to a platform like Diary.io, for example, where we have a lot of projects, but if you're able to build personal projects, I think that's a very good one, because I did that when there was no Diary.io, and it helped me, to land jobs, because my GitHub had projects that I would just think, like, I could take a Udemy course or a YouTube video, and based on my knowledge and my learnings from that, I can just think of things and just come up with it, even if it's not a use case that exists out there, right? Even if at the end of the day, it's not really going to solve any particular problem. But the fact that I'm going to spend time writing code to try to solve that problem is a big thing, because my GitHub is going to reflect that. Go on, Kid.
So when I started my first business, I was doing consulting. I started doing free consultation work for nonprofit boards. That's actually a great way, because they have a lot of problems. They don't have a budget, but they'll let you solve the problems for you. So making things easier, streamlining operationally. There's a lot of operations automation or operations pieces that if you go to nonprofits and say, hey, do you need, I want to give back to the community, is there something that you would be wanting help with? Because I'm looking to develop a portfolio. I want to help you out. I like your cause. Just you might have to call like 20, 30 people before you get it work, but that's a great way of doing it too. And usually the people who are on the boards of this company are pretty connected in bigger companies, right? Because they're donors. And so that's a great way to market yourself too and get out there. That was actually a good strategy that I used personally for building my last business.
Nice. And there was someone I worked with before, and he reached out to me one time and says, hey, Dari, my son, he's just graduated from school. He studied data science. He's been looking for work. He's not been able to get a job. And I said, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with this guy. Got on the call with him, and I'm asking, okay, so what portfolio do you have to show? What project? What are you talking about when you go for interviews? And he keeps saying, well, I'm a university graduate, and the things that I did in school, that's what I talk about. And I said to him, that's not going to work, right? And this is a generation where we now have generative AI, where you can query ChatGPT to actually think of use cases for you to go ahead and try to solve, right? Mm-hmm. So I told him, you need to go query ChatGPT to give you questions and use cases for e-commerce, hospitality, just name whatever industry, and try to solve those problems. Guess what? He did that, and in about a month after, he said, I got a job. Seriously, literally, as simple as that is, because he's got the skills already. He just wasn't able to communicate how he's able to solve problems. So that's a very, very important one. Thanks. We'll probably take one more so that we can let Ankit go. It's more than 30 minutes, so we can then go back into our stand-up, because we normally do like every 2 weeks stand-up with our community and see what they've learned and achieved in the last 2 weeks. Okay, so let me find an interesting one. Okay. All right, so this one seemed quite interesting. For a person who has more than one skill, such as skill in data analysis, website development, and digital marketing, how would you advise this person to structure his or her portfolio?
What role? And I don't know, can they respond if I ask a question? Would they be able to respond on here?
Well, this is for Segun Ajishafe, so I don't know if he's listening, but if you're listening,
okay,
there might be a follow-up question.
Well, what I would say is without that is what type of job do you want, right? And again, same thing I've been saying, use your skills to solve a problem in that space. So if you want a marketing heavy job, create a funnel, show that you've got a ROAS of something on a small product, a digital product that you can just sell something, like make something up, whatever. There's a million and one things you can do, or you can do an Amazon funnel or whatever. Show that you can actually do that. If you're looking for digital marketing, that is interesting. Web development, you could actually have 3 different portfolio cases too. If you wanted to do 3 different types of jobs, it really just depends on what you're wanting to do. Tailor to the type of job you want. You may have multiple portfolios that you could present based on the job you're applying to. But the more you can solve real world problems, and honestly, you need multiple stacks to solve real world problems. And so it actually, I think so what I'm reading here is, absolutely. What I would look for this is basically someone who can know how to use Facebook or Google campaigns, in social media marketing to drive to squeeze land pages or other methods of page, and showing that they can create a conversion cycle to generate money would be a great portfolio item on here. It shows all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to that, something that I always advise people as well is it depends on what you're applying for, like you said, right? So if you are someone who has just transitioned into tech and you're coming from healthcare or accounting or something, right? In as much as, you still want to show that you are very solid in some other areas, in some cases, it's going to do more harm to your profile than good, right? So I would just say, just take it off, right? If you're coming from healthcare and you want to get a DevOps job because you've been in the last 12, 18 months learning DevOps, right? There are some roles that they just want people who can just come in and solve the problem and just get things done. And confusing the employer that you're coming from healthcare and then now you're doing this, it just starts ringing some questions, and and there's a lot of CVs they want to look at. They probably just put it on the side. So I'll just say, make it relevant. If your existing skill is relevant, maybe you're coming from a networking background, a development background, and you're transitioning into something like that, then by all means do that, right? But in this case, let me see. I mean, digital marketing and development, data analysis, they all still connect together. So I would see how you have gone from, like a junior type and transitioning and what you've done, but make sure it connects, right? Make sure it all connects together. So for example, if you're trying to show that now you are a developer and you're coming from a digital marketing experience, of course, you can show how while you're doing digital marketing, you've struggled with implementing Facebook pixels, for example, and now with your development skills and marketing, it all connects together, so that's what I would say to that. But anyway, thank you so much, Ankit. I guess I'll probably let you go at this point. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time coming on this show today, and hopefully, maybe if we have something interesting again, we can invite you to come over.
That'd be great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, worth also saying, is it worth saying thank you to Ankit, but just worth saying we're trying to get Ankit as part of the family. For those who are currently in the Derrida orbit, it's worth sticking around in the orbit, because we are trying to build that strong relationships that funnels you to working on some of the interesting projects that Ankit's working on. So stick around and keep engaged. Thank you, Ankit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ankit.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. So, I guess, Jones, as well, your job is probably done right now, so I'm going to let you to go.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
You take care. All righty. So I'm just going to try to go back into some of the questions and see if I can answer some of them. But then again, don't forget what we normally do, which is to go through what you've been doing in the last 2 weeks. So in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to try to go through that, so that from the last time that we were on this show together, have you achieved something? And by the way, if you're joining this for the very first time, please indicate in the chat section so that we can know that this is your first time joining the Fireside Chat. Okay, so I'd like to see in the comment whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook. So let us know. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the top, and I'll try to start taking some of the questions, the ones that I think I can answer. Okay, so Simon say, how do you measure metrics when creating resume? For example, I ensured so and so, leading to a reduction in by 50%. That's a very interesting one. Now, it depends on what you're trying to measure. So, for example, there are certain things in the world of SRE, for example, and whereby there are specific metrics that needs to be measured. What you want to do, first of all, is establish what the benchmarks are. What is good, what is bad? Because, if you say you did something at a 20%, is that good? Or if you say at the 50%, is that overestimating? So you want to make sure it's realistic, and what are the benchmarks? So you need to do research on them. There are specific metrics depending on the role that you're applying to. Once you identify those metrics, then if you have actually been involved in doing that, it's something that is measurable and accessible while you're on the job. Okay, so if you work with a team that was struggling with their release process, and maybe they normally spend 2 weeks before they are able to successfully release something to production, and you come in and you introduce new things like Argo CD doing a new type of deploying things to production, okay, and all of a sudden a 2 weeks release has suddenly changed to a couple of hours, right? That is a massive increase, and you can measure that by a percentage. What's the percentage of that? If something takes 2 weeks, for example, and now it's taking a few hours, that is a massive increase. That's probably like a 500% that you can talk about. And I say this because I've had experience with it where an organization uses a certain way of releasing to production, and all of a sudden I'm coming and I'm presenting to them, oh, well, we can do GitOps, and we can introduce a tool like Flux or Argo CD to help with this type of things. And all of a sudden they see that sort of reduction in the time it takes. But then the impact of that is that the customers are now able to experience new features much faster than ever before. So if you're part of a team that is constantly measuring those things, it's something that you can keep track of, and you just keep notes of it so that when you're updating your CV, you can add that to it. Okay. Let me have a look. Is AI so okay? We've answered that before. And Abolade is saying here, unfortunately, some of us end up with mundane roles in their job. What happens when you meet someone, but his experience is just routine roles? I'm not sure I can connect. This was probably when discussion was happening, and we've lost that now. I apologize for that. Okay, let's say Kolawole here says, what are the opportunities therein for fresher like me who's no background knowledge in tech or IT, and how best can I develop within shortest possible time? I mean, if you're someone who is registered on the Diary.io platform and you're already building your portfolio, gaining experience, working on projects, you probably have that answered already. But if not, what you need is you need to start building a portfolio for yourself, right? You need to enroll in a program like Diary.io to start working on projects, start learning the technologies, and start building out that portfolio. That's the best way to go around it. Okay. But if you want to do like a self-learn type of thing, and you want to learn from watching YouTube or taking, maybe your friend is teaching you, you just have to make sure that you're able to work on personal projects and add that to your CV. Whatever it is, articulate that in your CV. Okay. All right. Ikuku is asking, how can I effectively showcase both technical skills and soft skills in my portfolio? Right. So first of all, soft skills, you have to highlight what soft skills you want to show, so whether it is leadership skills or mentoring skills, if you want to show that you're able to support other people in your team, or whether it's communication skills, technical skills, that's easy because you can talk about the things that you know and have done technically. But from a soft skills perspective, you can even have a section in your CV that actually highlights soft skills and how you have been able to use that in your roles. That is something that you can do. I've seen a few CVs like that, so that it is very, very specific. But be prepared that when you get on the interviews, you're able to actually show that, so if you're saying you have good communication skills, then of course they want to see how well you communicate. Something that I do very well at interviews is, if I'm being asked a question and I don't quite fully understand the question, what I then do is to tell the interviewer that, please permit me, I'm going to have to reiterate this question and confirm if what he said, if what I have just said is what he said. Okay. And if he says yes, I know that I've gotten that, and it helps me to articulate myself properly. In fact, the fact that I'm speaking it out is part of me showing how articulate I can be and what I get to do to show my articulation. So those are some of the things that you can take note of. Okay. I'm trying to look through the questions, and don't forget to put some of the things that you guys have been doing in the last 2 weeks. Okay, what projects have you completed? What new things have you learned? Whether it's in cybersecurity, data analysis, DevOps, cloud, new technologies that you've learned. Please put in the chat. I'd like to see. Okay, this is a very interesting one. What is the difference between a portfolio and a professional website? And what is the best content structure to build in each of them? Okay, so a portfolio goes beyond your CV. It goes beyond, your professional website. I mean, combining your website, your CV, your LinkedIn profile, your GitHub projects, that's your portfolio. Okay, everything that makes up your professional identity, that's your portfolio put together, right? And you can have a professional website, that's fine, but the question is, when a company is asking for your resume, you're not just going to send a link to your website, right? What they want to see is your CV. Okay, and in your resume, that's where you put your profile description, your experience, your qualification, your certifications. That's where you put all of that. And some people put colors and try to make it look very nice. You're not doing graphic designing. Your CV or resume has to be simple, not too many pages. Okay, if your CV is going beyond 4 pages, it's not a good thing. I'm not trying to read a book, right? And I want to make sure that it's concise and it's between 3 to 4 pages, depending on how many years of experience that you have, right? So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it's not too designy, right? Black and white is fine. Maybe a little bit of blue if you want to put some colors, right? I've seen some like that. But to be safe, just make it like gray and white, black. That's perfect. Okay, so you can have and also have the same content on your website, right? And on your website, you can make that look very nice, shiny. Your picture can be there, and also you can have a video, because now it's a digital world and it's nice for people to get a feel of what it is like when you're speaking and all that. And it's an interesting thing you said that, because that's part of the things that we're working on at Diary.io, helping to create digital portfolio like that, which will help extract all your data from all sources, your website, your GitHub, and all that, and create a dynamic CV for that. But we'll get to release that somewhere down the line and let you know when that happens. But for the time being, your CV, make sure it's nice. Your GitHub, make sure it's active if you're in a development space, right? Put your projects there, regularly commit, show that you're working. LinkedIn is another one. Create blog posts from time to time. Share your stories, share your progress, let people know what you're working on. And you can then show, if you're a developer and you have the skills, you can connect your blog post to your website and to see what you're working on. And then you can put the link to your website on your CV. So if someone is interested in your profile after seeing your CV and they want to dig a little bit further, where do they go? They go to your LinkedIn, right? If you put the link to your website, they go to your LinkedIn as well. They go to your GitHub. So you can nicely structure all those, put it in there, and that becomes your portfolio, right? So your portfolio is ultimately all the different things that you do to show, your experience, how skillful you are, and all that. And then putting that in the CV. The CV is like the gateway, the entry point. That's what you're handing in, right? And then the employer or recruiter that can then go in and begin to see all the other pieces. Okay. All right, so Lambert has said here, I'm newbie in tech and I'm interested in DevOps. So yeah, we can certainly help you there, right? So we have programs, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. We have externship program as well that once you build the relevant skills, you can get placed into teams of engineers, work on Jira tickets, and get access to tech leads that can give you personalized feedback on your work. All those sort of things is amazing that we can help you to do and ultimately build a portfolio that can certainly help you excel. Okay. All right. So let's see. Can candidates who excel in okay, let's see. Can candidates who excel in technical skill but lack soft skills be identified during the interview process and still be considered for the job? How should candidates be evaluated? So, I mean, this differs from organization to organization, okay? So, if you have technical skills, but you don't have soft skills, um, the question is, why don't you have soft skills? It's a good thing that you identify that you don't have soft skills, but you need to work on having it because organizations are always not just interested in technical skills. Okay, it's very important for how well you're going to fit into the company because they're not hiring you just to come and do technical stuff, right? You're going to be communicating with other people. You're going to need to share your ideas. If you have the technical skills and you can't share your ideas with the people that need to know about what you can do technically, it's just not going to work. It's going to be frustrating to you, to the organization, to your team members, So if you lack in certain soft skills, you have to be conscious about building them. Okay. And one way to do that, we actually do that on our training programs too, whereby you choose to teach what you have learned. So we have something called the knowledge gap sessions where you can actually teach other people some of the project that you've worked on. And the act of teaching helps you to retain the knowledge. And for those who are on the externs program, one of the things that they do is when they have a pull request to the tickets that they've worked on, they create Loom videos talking about their pull request and their thought process into putting that together. That is part of what we're using to help build soft skills because you use it to show up and show what you've done and articulate what you've done. And it's amazing how it's helping people articulate themselves. So yeah, soft skills are very important. So please make sure that you're very, very intentional about that. Okay. So someone's asking, okay, so Josie is actually responding to Chukudi. So Excellence AI is designed to support with live production environment, including soft skills, familiarity with their ceremonies. Yes. So that's pretty much what I've just talked about. Jones, thank you very much for that. You can visit extens.ai. That's part of our products that we launched, helping solve these problems. Okay. All right. Brilliant. And yeah, I can see a lot of first timers here. Patrick, great to have you here. We have David, great to have you here. Shagun, great to have you here as well. We've got Mashoud. We've got Bienvenu. I hope I pronounced that very well. And Michael, welcome, guys. Cornelius, welcome. Oluwatobi, welcome as well. So it's amazing to see that you're all joining for the first time. I mean, there's a whole lot of people here, and I'm glad, and I hope that it's been very informative and helpful. All the information that's been shared. Okay, now Ikena, let me see. All right. So Ikena is asking, first time here, welcome, and he's on Facebook watching. He says, I have over 5 years in digital marketing, works professionally under two marketing and advertising agencies on site in Nigeria. Over 4 months, I've been trying so hard to get a job, a stable job with a stable pay in my field remotely. How do I craft a resume for? Because I have been getting some rejections, even with how heavy it is. All right. So here's the thing, you have to understand the industry in which you're playing, okay? And sometimes it's not about the years of experience or how good you are when it comes to finding work. It's also an economic how shall I say, concept here, right? The laws of demand and supply. So if you're trying to get a gig with an American firm or from some organizations in Europe, you probably also want to do research and see how much of those skills are already there, right? Because a company that is in Europe will probably want to hire someone locally uh, before they look elsewhere, especially if there is a lot of people already that are able to do that. So you know, marketing, um, there's a lot of people doing marketing, and it's a fantastic career. I mean, I studied marketing in my HND when I was at Lagos State Polytechnic, and I know for a fact that it's a rewarding career if done properly, and there's tons of opportunities out there. But the question is, what's the level of competition? Okay, how many people are you actually up against? And that's why some people are beginning to pivot into certain areas in which there is less competition and there's more demand. And if there is a lot of demand, then obviously it's a question of, do we have enough resources locally? And that's why, Ankit mentioned the other time, I mean, he's an employer, he runs a business, and he goes to platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, to find freelancers to do things. Okay. So now, to speak directly on portfolio, it may not be a matter of your experience or the competition. It might actually be a matter of how you have structured your portfolio. For example, are you showing work that you've done, right? Are you showing testimonials? Okay, if you have people that are do you have like an Upwork profile that have testimonials of jobs that you've done, reviews? Okay, do you have things like that on your LinkedIn? Do you have people writing recommendations on you? How visible are you? Do you write blog posts all the time, or do you do YouTube content on what you do, how you help people solve problems? You see, it still speaks to what I said about what a portfolio is. It's not just about your resume. It's a very holistic thing. All these other things, what are you doing to then show them in a CV that makes someone wants to be curious more, to learn more about you? Okay. So these are things you have to look into. Okay, and I can see here you said even how heavy the resume. So it's not about the heavy resume. Remember, I said just now that your CV should even be more than 3 to 4 pages, right? So even if you have a lot of experience, you have to make sure from time to time you review your structure in a way where the most important information is there: your skill, your achievement, the things you've been able to do for other organizations, the results. I mean, if I want to hire a marketing person and I'm seeing results like I helped this organization who was making $50,000 a month before, and all of a sudden because of my involvement in their marketing. Now they make $250,000 a month. Boy, I want to speak to you, right? Because I want to know how you've done that and probably implement the same thing in my business, you know? So, but we are not a marketing training organization. I'm just speaking from a more general perspective, and this speaks to any career at all. Okay. All right. So Grace says currently a data analyst, but want to future proof by going to the cloud. Could you chart a path for a data analyst in the cloud? So the good thing is a lot of things that you can do, data analysis, and a lot of tools in the cloud that you can use um, to build experience around that. Okay. So if let's say you started off your career working with Excel, right? You do data analysis, using Excel. You want to take that to, another level. You want to learn SQL. You want to start visualizing in, tools like Tableau, Power BI, and all that. And the moment you get to that level and you want to start learning about the cloud, you probably want to start learning about data engineering, right? You want to learn a programming language like Python and start understanding how, ETL works, extraction, transformation, and loading, and a bit of data warehousing. You want to start learning how AWS, for example, or Azure, how they implement certain cloud solution, like database as a service, data warehouse as a service, analytics as a service, how you can load data into S3, for example, and query data directly from there, or how to work with tools like Kafka, how to stream data. You want to start touching on those technologies and build on top of it. It's a lifelong learning thing, but you go from learning one technology to another and you move on from there, right? And that's how you future proof yourself. And you don't just stop there. You go into big data. You learn things like, Hadoop, MapReduce, there are other tools in the open source community around, let's say, Hive, for example. You want to learn about, MPPs and different types of databases, how to analyze a massive amount of data, working with like Hive, for example. You just have to carry on learning and probably get yourself into other data science type of role, skill set, taking your statistical knowledge and mathematical knowledge and taking that into uh, um, analyzing data for some marketing algorithm that is able to maybe analyze some discounts. There's a whole lot of things you can do. I'm not a data engineer, but I mean, I can tell you from what I've seen in other people's career, how they have future-proof, their career in that perspective. Okay. But you just have to be part of a community and speak to people a lot and learn. Check out job descriptions, always go to job sites and see what they're saying in terms of technologies and just keep stacking those knowledge to yourself. Okay. Someone is asking, can you submit your link tree as a portfolio? I haven't seen that. I mean, we use Linktree on our Instagram, and I think that's used mostly by businesses. I haven't seen anyone using that as a portfolio, but I mean, if you have that, you can put it on your CV or your resume, a link to it. If an employer is interested, they can just have a look at it. Okay. And I'll just take this last one. Okay. All right. So Chuku Ebuka is saying it's his first time. Welcome, Chuku Ebuka. I'm a social media manager and graphics designer. I've been applying for remote jobs, but keeps getting rejected, even with my ATS resume. Please, what can I do to scale through? I think this is very similar to what I shared about the other person who shared similar experience with digital marketing, right? So again, you have to look closely at the industry in which you're playing. Okay. If you feel like there's a lot of competition and you've done everything you have to do, building a solid portfolio and all that, you probably want to start adding other skills to your portfolio, right? And see what it would look like for you, pivoting into something else that may help you attract such opportunities, right? I'm sure software engineers, data scientists, they won't be saying the same thing if, I know a lot of people who are in Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, who work with companies in the US. I mean, we are partnering with Ankit, whose company is in the US, and there's a whole lot of things, that is going on in that conversation where we're going to be able to deploy talent from Africa into those businesses. So again, it's just a matter of looking into the industry you're playing and check the competition, and I guess you can go from there. Also, but make sure that your portfolio is solid, your reviews, your testimonials, and all that. All right, cool. All right, so Grace is saying next step should be data engineering and the foot in the door to the cloud. Absolutely, brilliant. All right, so thank you so much, guys. We're going to be stopping here. I enjoyed my time today. I totally enjoyed my time today, and I'm going to see you in the next 2 weeks. So please make sure you go to diary.io, sign up on our platform. We have free trials that you can sign up to. So just click on the enroll button and speak to enrollment consultant, and we can help you navigate your tech journey and even get you onto extras. If you already have some skills already and you're looking for opportunity to work with organizations to build actual experiences, right? Feel free to reach out as well so that we can help you with the externs offering. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I wish you all the best, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.